If you've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and you find yourself wondering, how on earth did I get this condition? I don't know what I did wrong. Today's video is for you because we're going to take it back to basics and we're going to explain in detail what causes type 2 diabetes. And you can worry about all the possible things, but it really comes down to two basic problems, and I will break that down to you. So let's dive into it. Type 2 diabetes. Now, what causes type 2 diabetes? Type 2 diabetes is a condition where the blood sugar, your blood glucose levels are high. And type 2 diabetes arises when your blood glucose levels are high more often than they are normal. Now, let's talk about the causes of high blood sugar. Four main causes. One is that you're taking too much sugar into your body, right? That's the most obvious cause, but it's only one of the four main causes. So too much sugar coming in, so lots of candy, lots of cookies, lots of sweetened drinks, lots of starches, just lots and lots coming in throughout the course of the day. So that's one main cause. Now, the second cause is that, okay, maybe you have some sugar coming in, but not that much. But the problem with it is that the little bit of sugar that you have coming in is coming in too rapidly. Okay, so that sugar is simple sugar, so candy, juice especially, or simple starches, especially breads and pastries and biscuits, right? Because starches will break down to 100% glucose or sugar. Okay, so you have less sugar than in cause number one, so some sugar but not that much, but it comes in too rapidly because these forms are simple to the point where not much work is required by your body, and so it just absorbs into your bloodstream without any blockage, no hindrance whatsoever. So that's the second cause. Okay, now the third cause is that, okay, maybe you have sugar coming in, not that much, right? But whatever sugar comes into your body, it just doesn't get used up quickly enough, right? So it comes into your bloodstream, but it doesn't get sucked out of your blood by the tissues of the body, right? Now, many reasons. The obvious one, the obvious way that sugar is used is by your muscles. So when you move around, because the muscles are pretty dense and they need a lot of energy. So maybe you retired, or maybe you got injured somehow and you're just not able to move around as much as you used to move around before. So your muscles are just not working and sucking the amount of energy from your body. Or maybe with advancing age, and which is why diabetes, typically type 2 diabetes is more common. The older you get, the higher chance of getting diabetes because of loss of muscle, right? That happens with aging. You get some muscle wasting, and so by default you're needing less energy, right? Muscle is one, and there are a variety of other, just having healthy organs in your body in general. All our organs are using energy. If somebody had a stroke and it knocked out a part of their brain, then they have less healthy brain tissue that needs energy. If you have some heart disease or you had a heart attack, potentially you're going to need less energy with your heart, and so on and so forth, right? So basically your body just not using up the sugar as fast as it's coming into your bloodstream. So that's a third of the four main causes. And then the fourth cause is, okay, maybe you don't eat a lot of sugar at all. Maybe you eat no sugar, right? And you don't really eat too much simple starches, but your body is actually making too much sugar from scratch. So that's the fourth reason for blood sugar staying high more than it is normal, right? Now, stress is an obvious one that you might recognize, just being under stress, psychological stress. But unrecognized is a chronic inflammatory stress in your body. Like there's some inflammation going on in your body. Maybe there's a chronic infection, chronic hepatitis, some chronic fungal infection, or some chronic situation stressing your body, right? Sometimes it's not an infection, but some sort of autoimmune or rheumatologic condition where your body's fighting against itself. Lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, any of these conditions where there's just this chronic inflammation going on in your body, right? And that is a stressful state, and because of that ongoing stress, your body's actually making sugar, thinking, oh my goodness, like I need energy to act, right? It's that fight or flight response, right? And in that stressful response, your body's making sugar. Another one as well is if your blood oxygen levels are too low, whether from a chronic lung disease, or if you have sleep apnea and you have all these pauses during sleep where your body's chronically suffering or starving for oxygen. Okay, so those are the four main causes of sugar being too high in the blood. Okay, you're either taking in way too much, right? Or number two, you're taking in, but not that much, but it's just kind of getting into your system too quickly. Three, you're not burning it off as fast as you're taking in. And four, you're making too much from scratch. Now, how does your body, right? So that's the first main cause. I said there are two main causes of type 2 diabetes. The first main one is just blood sugar staying high for too long, right? Now, second thing, we're going to get into that, but before we explain the second main cause of type 2 diabetes, let's talk about what happens when your blood sugar goes high. So every time your blood sugar goes high, your body responds to that by making insulin, more insulin. So your pancreas puts out more insulin to bring those blood sugar levels down to normal, where it thrives in that 110 range, about 80 to 140 max, but 80 to 120 is really ideal, okay? So whenever your blood sugar is going above 120, 140 and more, then your body, your pancreas is secreting insulin to keep it down into that nice, normal, gentle range, okay? So if your blood sugar is staying high very often, it means your body is needing to make more insulin, right? And eventually, when your blood sugar is just, your body, is making so much insulin, the insulin levels are staying high because it's really like, oh my goodness, sugar keeps coming in. So we need to keep insulin on board so that we can get that get that sugar stored away, right? Now, here is where the second problem arises, right? When your insulin stays high, eventually that bombardment of all the cells of your body, right, by insulin, they get to the point where they are tired of being bombarded, and so they start blocking the action of insulin. Now, in the hospital, there's this situation where some patients, unfortunately, it's just a described phenomenon where when the call bell for the patients calling the nurses goes off too often, right, eventually the nurses become immune to the sound of the call bell. They just kind of ignore it. They block it out. It's been going off so often that eventually they just stop hearing it, okay? Of course, that can become a problem because then the patient might really have a problem that needs to be addressed urgently, and then you can see what might happen, right? So in the same way where a recurring noise becomes kind of numbed out, you block it out. So in that same way, your body, if it keeps getting bombarded by insulin, all this insulin, eventually it sort of locks out the sound of insulin, locks out the bother by insulin. And so what happens is that insulin can no longer work to store away blood glucose. And so in that response, we call that insulin resistance. When you have insulin resistance, it means that insulin doesn't work to store away glucose. If insulin is no longer working to put away glucose, what happens? Your blood glucose levels stay high. And so these are the two problems causing type 2 diabetes. One, sugar stays too high, right, for too long, right? And then to solve problem number one, your body puts out more insulin, but in doing that and the insulin staying high, eventually it stops working, and that is insulin resistance. So what happens with type 2 diabetes, unfortunately, is that solving problem number one, too much sugar, causes problem number two, which is insulin resistance. High insulin, which no longer works efficiently. That is what causes type 2 diabetes. Only those two problems. Now, you might say, okay, good. Well, these are the two problems. How on earth do I fix it? That's what I want to know, right? Well, let's get into how we fix it. To fix type 2 diabetes, you need to do a combination of four things. You might be able to do two of the four things. You might be able to do one on some days, or you might be able to address all four of the solutions for type 2 diabetes, right? What are those solutions? One, right, is to eat less sugar. So start looking at where you're getting your sugar from so that you can ultimately begin to cut down the amount of sugar you're eating, okay? The liquid sugars are probably going to be the big culprit, but it might be different for other people, right? So eat less sugar, right? Two is, absorb or soak in sugar more slowly, right? So absorb less sugar. So that means whatever sugar you're having, you want to have it with things that are going to block its path of entry into your bloodstream, right? Fiber is a good one, okay? Naturally occurring fat is another. Protein is another. If you have sugar with other things, okay, it means that the sugar will have to get across an obstacle path to get into your bloodstream, okay? And then the third thing, right, is to burn more sugar, right? And to burn more sugar means that whenever you take sugar into your system, and just in general, you need to be more active, using your muscles more, right? So that you can be sucking that sugar out of your bloodstream as soon as it goes in, okay? There's sometimes some foods that help you burn more sugar, peppery foods, spicy foods, okay? Peppermint, green tea is said to help you, sort of be more efficiently burn sugar, okay? and just anything that would increase the amount of the type of fat in the body called brown fat. So they talk about cold showers and cold plunges and so on and so forth, right? So burn more sugar. And then the fourth way to bring and keep your sugar down in your bloodstream is to try to make less sugar. And that's where you have to address whatever ongoing, underlying, smoldering stress is present in your body. Maybe psychological stress, maybe not. Maybe it is that you have an undiagnosed chronic infection or an inflammatory problem, a rheumatologic or autoimmune problem that's going on in your body. Maybe it's that your blood oxygen levels are low, you have sleep apnea and you do not realize it, okay? So those are the 4 things that you will do to help bring your blood glucose levels back down and keep them back down, right? And those 4 steps form the basis of my BEAM blueprint. Burn more sugar, eat less sugar, absorb or soak in less sugar, and make less sugar, right? BEAM, that is how you're going to reverse and really basically cure your type 2 diabetes, depending on how progressive it is, okay? And to learn more about those 4 steps, you can pick up a copy of my book, Beaming Health, which is available on Amazon.com, either the paperback version or the Kindle version, and you will learn in more detail how you can go about reversing your type 2 diabetes so that you can live a nice, long, healthy, productive, happy, wholesome life. I hope you found this back to basics video helpful, and you can take some of the strategies I spoke about so that you can no longer be confused and feeling hopeless, but instead feel hopeful about the future of your health. Thank you for watching this video. Share it with somebody who you think would benefit from this information, and you'll find the link to my book in the description below. Take care, and I will see you on the next video. Goodbye.